Greetings, my name is Slight, and welcome to a video where I'm just going to talk and explain some of the things that I've been seeing in the new hero, Lee, the Firefox, and just kind of explain some opportunities I think that there are for the character. This is a first impressions sort of look at the character. I've played maybe 10 to 15 runs with her at this point. I've been playing all of them with my own special difficulty, Slight's Way. Which is R8, where you skip the first blessing. And I've been having a really good time. She's very strong, and I think I've got some spicy builds for you guys to try that I've sort of been theory crafting about. We're far away from anything like a tier list. As you know, I like to play the character many times before I make a tier list, as well as get community interaction. I'm not sure if I will make one, but just to be clear, this isn't going to be anything that's nearly that thought out. So without any further ado, let's take a quick look at the character. I don't want to get too far into stats, just because I don't think that's super helpful. She's easy to kill. She's not super fast, what else is there to say? Let's talk about the character as a whole. I haven't done many Blazing Meteor builds, but Spiritual Flame does seem very strong just right out the gate. You really don't need much synergies to really make it work, which is cool. That makes her accessible and fun. There's not even a lot of weapon-like usage that you really need on this character, although you can, and I should be able to explain some ideas there. The coolest thing about Lee, and the thing that you need to know if you're going to be playing this character, especially on a higher difficulty, is that Blazing Meteor has a very unique ability that's very similar to the dog, in that you can use it to stagger enemies. Staggering enemies is a high skill but very powerful ability, because many channeling abilities like Bandit Retainers, who shoot the homing attacks, and Elite Arsonists, who I like how Dog is over here at his own table. That's so Dog, right? Because he's... Never mind. I'm not going to trash on Dog right now. This is about Firefox. Anyway, so like Bandit Retainers and Elite Arsonists, when they do their flamethrower attack, you can stagger them and cancel that attack fully. The big thing to keep in mind is that staggering enemies has a 5-second cooldown, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 5 seconds. I'm kind of going off of memory there, which means that you kind of have to be smart about how you do it. If you just cast Blazing Meteor as they're walking up to you, well, now you've wasted the ability to cancel that flamethrower. So now if they get in range and flamethrower you, you Blazing Meteor them and you die. So you can't. So you have to be thoughtful. That being said, if you are thoughtful about how you use Blazing Meteor, the very fact that it staggers becomes an incredibly powerful early game tool. Okay. One of the big things that I've learned about Lee, and if you watched my uncut run with music, and if you were paying close attention, you'll have noticed this, that a lot of attention is being placed on maxing Practice Makes Perfect as early as possible. And I was able to max this with 3,600 energy before the end of Act 2, which I think is good pace. That's, I think, ideal pace. And the reason we want to do this is because we don't have time to spend a lot of time casting Spiritual Flame in the late game. It's very powerful, but if it took the full amount of time to cast it, as it does initially, it would be a lot worse than it is. And so the way that you stack this is just to literally make sure it's never at full energy. If you need to hit something with Spiritual Flame for it to stack energy into Practice Makes Perfect. So keep that in mind. You can't just shoot nothing. So you always want to be kind of paying attention. It's kind of like... easy kill bird. You really need to be focused and attentive in stacking your early game, especially because that's when Cleave and Spiritual Flame are just innately very powerful. Cleave is probably the single best damage-based ability early on. It hits a huge area. It is extremely fast. It is repeatable very quickly, and it does have a lot, it does a lot of damage. A lot of DPS, rather, in a large area. Spiritual Flame is not exactly the same way, but it has this huge area of effect that you're trying to take advantage of. And it starts out really, really strong. So something to keep in mind with Spiritual Flame is that you want to line enemies up, and you want to be kind of cognizant about putting people like don't just shoot it at the person in front of you. You really can hit 5 enemies in a big room pretty easily with a evolved spiritual flame. And so you want to be kind of thinking about that and thinking about how to position yourself and how to recognize opportunities where you will be in a position where you can actually hit 3 to 7 enemies. Sorry, I've got this guy just hanging out. He's being a little unruly. 3 to 7 enemies downstream is absolutely doable. And that doesn't charge this more, but what it does is make Spiritual Flame better. Instead of doing whatever damage it does, you're doing 7 times that total damage, right? And that's exactly what we want to do. So, sort of in this pocket, right, of practice makes perfect. Something to notice is that another great utility for Blazing Meteor, if you're not using Blazing Meteor for damage, it has stagger, and it's a very effective way to recover energy early in the game. Because it recovers 2 energy for every enemy hit, if you hit a pack of 6 beetles coming at you, that's a sizable amount of energy. That's more than a quarter of your energy in 1 meteor, right? And so if you were able to cast, 3 meteors on 3 enemies, you're getting, a very sizable amount of energy. And that is one way, if you're just thinking about trying to stack this up, this practice makes perfect as early as possible. These are all the tools that you're using. Never let your energy be full, and try to use Blazing Meteor as a way to recover energy and as a way to stagger. Now, the staggering is separate. It's not really a way to buff practice makes perfect. But those are the kind of 2 things you should be thinking about early game with Blazing Meteor. Flame Arsenal's great. I learned from the wiki. And anytime I mention the wiki, I just want a huge shout out to the guys in Discord, Altana, Walter. Those are the 2 guys who I think are most active in discussing and figuring out, Walter X8, figuring out the wiki. And the amount of knowledge these guys have is incredible. And, I wouldn't know half the stuff that I know without these guys in the Discord. So, as much as it's good for me to try to explain this stuff to you, and maybe I do a pretty good job at that, a lot of this information I don't have time to get, and they get it, And so just a huge shout out to those guys. Anyway, the Flame Arsenal drops a fire weapon, and that can be a weapon that already comes with fire, like a Scorching Rounds is always innately with fire, or it could be a normal weapon with the fire damage inscription. So this actually has quite a bit of different options as far as what types of weapons it can drop. Okay. Goodbye, kitty. Okay, Overheating. Plus 100 base meteor damage. Plus 20% max shield. Yeah, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I got distracted. Okay, Flaming Cape. 20% max shield upon taking damage. Inflict the burning effect to an enemy. This is fine. This is good, even. This plus Thorny Carapace is kind of interesting because, just them hitting you makes them combust, which is, have I ever done that? Is it that good? Yeah, there's a lot better things that Lee's doing. Speaking of better things, Hunt of Fire. So, this is a multiplicative damage effect against enemies in burning. All right, this makes any damage that an enemy in burning takes increase by 50%. I'm not exactly sure if this is in the same or different bucket than the plus 50% damage to enemies under the burning effect weapon inscription. I assume it is a separate one, but I could be wrong about that. Interestingly enough, this inscription actually also boosts the damage from burning. So instead of burning doing 20% damage per second over 5 seconds, it gets a 50% damage increase to 30%. Gotta take a call 1 sec. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so yeah, so this is really, really cool. And I feel like this really changes the character in a way that I think is a bit unique. Hunt of Fire being, if it is a total multiplicative damage increase, what it really allows you to do is you don't have to go for an elemental fusion to do crazy damage. You can really just do fire damage and be doing a really good job. And so I'm curious to see how that all shakes out and like what can become of that. But I do know, like, using any individual high percent chance weapon like a fire dragon does a lot of damage on Lee because of Hunt of Fire here. All right, let's look at the Ascensions. Okay, so let's. I think like the first build that most people figure out is Conflagration with Spirit Flame along with Energetic Spirit. Is this one right? Energetic Spirit, Endless Wildfires, Firefox Blessing. Yeah, so these four right here. When you combine these together, your damage is literally insane. It's not easy to get all four of those unless you're getting Ultimate Gambler right at the beginning of the game. Then you have a pretty good chance, but the damage is pretty cranked. It may be too high. I don't know if it's this Firefox Blessing that's really doing it, but I mean, even with a level, like just one level in Firefox, a level or two in Conflag, and some levels in Endless Fire, like one level of Energetic Spirit and 2 levels in Endless Fire Wildfires. I think that's what I had in my Uncut run. The damage was nuts, and I'm playing R8, like the damage was very respectable, right? And so I think that's kind of like one way to play, is just sort of to go for all this, go all in on your Spiritual Flame. You can get the Fiery Heart here to ensure you get the burning effect. You can get heat recovery for a little bit of max shield. And so let's talk about a couple ways to tech into this particular build. I think that, where is it? Nourishing Flame is one that should be on your list as a tech-in if you don't have anything better for this particular build, because what it allows you to do is use it. This basically more than doubles your ability to gain energy from your Blazing Meteor. So even one level of Nourishing Flame is absolutely usable here, because you're going to be using that to stagger enemies all the way up until the end of the game. There are going to be times when there are not procs of Endless Wildfires, and you actually kind of run out of energy. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And that's when Nourishing Flame will get you right back into the action super quick, especially in R8 where there are lots of enemies and stuff like that. Along with this is Flare Calling. You're going to be shooting your weapon at least some. And so basically what this does, especially combined with Nourishing Fire, is it's another tech that basically is a way for you to gain energy without really having to do anything to really do it. You're just getting a free Meteor, which is going to give you some free energy to use. I think that's another good way to tech some stuff in. Furious Flame, excuse me, fits really well in with this kind of build here. It's nothing special until the max level, though, in my personal opinion. I mean, I look at this and I am not impressed. The max level is pretty good, right? And maybe even great. It doesn't look fun. This is, compare this to Pyro Dominance, right? I do think it's very powerful. And unexpectedly powerful would be the level 3 Ascension point. Plus 33% damage bonus against enemies with shield armor. It's probably a multiplicative damage increase, so nothing to scoff at. And I think that kind of covers all the tech. You could get one level of Unceasing Blaze as well. You could get Flame Resonance if you really wanted to. And then Heat Recovery here is kind of your main, way to gain shield and stuff. So I think that's kind of like the most basic way to play. As far as the Burning Meteor, I haven't played this build yet, but it seems to be like Spiritual Meteor is great. This gives you extra meteors. I don't think that this is particularly good in this build. Accurate Crush is great, especially for bosses. I mean, this is kind of like, it's great that they have this Ascension, because really what it does is like, okay, your skill build's still good against bosses, right? Or elites after you clear everything else. This is great. Unceasing Blaze. 50% chance to restore one use. So, and now you can... Oh, okay. Restores uses when Blazing Meteor inflicts the burning effect. So you have a 50% chance when it inflicts burning to restore one use. And then if it inflicts burning, it just restores 1 use. And then if it inflicts burning, it restores 2 uses. Okay, gotcha. It's probably a 20% chance. Let's see here. I'm going to tab out real quick. I don't think you can see what I'm doing. Let's get here. Okay. Blazing Meteor. 50% chance to inflict burning. So way better than Leilo's Chain Lightning. Wow. Way better. Huh. That's not what I expected. So it turns out that the Meteor has a 50% chance to apply burning. So 25% of the time you restore 1, then 50% of the time you restore 1, and then 50% of the time you restore 2, which is kind of like 100% of the time restoring 1. It's not exactly the same. The tech for this one looks like, I did see some stuff here. It's kind of like the staying at full energy type thing, right? And Flame Resonance gets a lot better. You're basically reducing their damage. It lasts for a long time, especially level 3. 16 seconds is a really long time, and makes them take more damage. So casting lots of meteors is going to be great. Flare Calling is really, really strong in this build as well. That's just more meteors. That's exactly what you're looking for. I thought there was one more that kind of did more damage, like the more extra energy you had. I see Nourishing Fire here. I guess it maybe is this level 3 for every maximum energy you have plus 1% base bonus damage. Maybe that's it. But I haven't played with that one too much, so let's get into something that I think is a bit more interesting. So first off, we need to talk about her best Ascension. In my opinion, is Flame Talisman by far. This is absolutely nuts. It is better than Voltaic Aegis, and Voltaic Aegis on Leilo is S tier, first pick, every pick, right? The first level of this is absolutely incredible. And the fact that this gives you damage as well as damage reduction is pretty nuts. At level 3, you essentially become unkillable. And so one of the ways I'd like you to consider playing with with Lee, is sort of like a weapon-centric build that uses Flame Talisman to stack burning effects, and can be pretty flexible. So Flame Talisman, along with Heat Recovery, is an extremely powerful base defensive ability that you can use to great effect. And one of the reasons Heat Recovery is so good is that as you naturally gain energy, you gain a percentage of energy over time, right? So you gain 2%, and then you gain energy every time you hit a Blazing Meteor. All of that sort of adds up with Heat Recovery. And it actually becomes really substantial. Even with level 1, in the Longling Tombs, without any blessings, I can post 40, even 50 sometimes, like max shield. But max shield is the thing to keep in mind. That is the biggest thing about Heat Recovery, is that you really need to front load the shield gain. Otherwise, you're not going to reap the rewards. Because you're gaining max shield, that means if you are at, let's say you have 100 shield, all right, max shield, and then you gain 50. But you weren't at max shield, all right? You were only at 50 shield, okay? Well, you're only going to gain 25 current shield because your current shield moves up proportionally to your max. So one of the things to keep in mind about heat recovery is that it's sort of a win more or a front-loaded defensive tool, which means you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about it. Unlike Flame Talisman, which works all the time. Anytime you inflict burning, you get a stack. And these stacks don't decrease that fast. Losing just 3 stacks on a hit is insane. It's too good. It's too good. So if you're skipping Flame Talisman, you're not playing this character right. But to sort of fit in, so like, how do we take this defensive core and really build on it? And one of the best ways to do that is Burning Bullet. This has a great synergy. I mean, plus 210 Lucky Shot is incredible, but also read it as plus 30 max shield as well. And if you have level 3 of heat recovery, you're getting plus 45 max shield every 1.5 seconds with this. And so you get a really powerful utility here. I do think that there's a way to build a melee build for this character with something like even double fire tower, so that you're always getting a burning proc pretty much every hit. I think that would be very powerful. Even if we don't plan on using Spiritual Flame, we want to build it up. We still want to use it early because it's powerful early. And then we can use stuff like Flame Forged here. Because we have that fast cast time, we can just full cast, blow it, all right? And then we're getting a significant weapon and skill damage for 6 seconds, but that duration increases every time we kill someone, right? Molten Meteor, also great for this sort of like slow firing, like we're using like something like a Piercing Flame, or a Scorching Rounds, or maybe even a launcher with the flame effect with a Gemini to something like a fire tower. Something like that would really work well. Something that's kind of like shooting fewer weapons but getting big damage off of them. And then I think Flare Calling also fits right in here with all this. Furious Flame seems fine. I mean, that's just extra damage. But a little bit more interestingly, I think a Nourishing Fire fits really well with this build because we can, sit at max. You can kind of go two different directions, right? You could go this direction where you want to keep your energy high, or you could kind of go this direction where you want to spend your energy with Flame, with Conflagration. Now, with Spiritual Flame, excuse me. But I do think that you really want to be spending your energy, especially if you're going for heat recovery. Sure, gaining energy gives you it, but consuming the energy gives you even more. So, holding that energy back, I don't know how effective that is. A couple easy levels here of Energetic Spirit will be great. Because they increase your recovery speed, they essentially just increase your max shield. Because as you recover, you're getting max shield from heat recovery. Increasing that recovery speed just means that your base, it's just like a flat max shield increase, essentially. And is there anything else? You could take a level of Flame Resonance if you wanted. Nothing special there. I kind of think that covers... I had one other build. So if you're not going to go for the classic Spiritual Flame build, another kind of interesting way to play without just going pure damage is to intentionally use a corrosion weapon, even though this doesn't have as much synergy, along with Fiery Heart, to guarantee the combustion proc on every single Spiritual Flame that you cast. Because you are guaranteed to inflict the burning effect, as long as you use something like an Aura of Venom, you do the right click, you're pretty much guaranteed to apply corrosion to something, especially if it's a big enemy. And then you just throw your Spiritual Flame with Fiery Heart, and you're getting a plus 200% multiplicative damage boost on that hit of Spiritual Flame. And if I understand correctly, I'm going to check, 1 sec. Okay, I was correct. So the combustion has a 0.12 second cooldown, but it's per enemy. So if you have enemies that are grouped up and you apply corrosion in a large area, and then you pass a Spiritual Flame through them with this Fiery Heart, they will all combust, deal that extra damage, but combustion now does 100% damage in an area of effect. So they'll have overlapping area of effects from their combustion, and literally nothing survives that, especially if you've got a couple, you don't even need super high levels. You can kind of run this build even if you have really subpar things working for you. And so I could see this particular build being really flexible enough even for you to slip in some caster stuff where you're doing Meteor and Spiritual Flame stuff, because you don't really need to just go full Spiritual Flame. And I could see you taking kind of the best of both worlds and getting some good value out of that, something with Flame Talisman. So I could see a hybrid build working out pretty well with her as well. So some weapons that I think are super good on her. Let's look here. Crimson Files here is okay. I mean, it's good, but nothing that I'm super excited about. Fire Dragon's incredible, mostly because of its ability to apply burning. Piercing Flame's good, especially if you're going for a particular type of build that's going to utilize the what is this called? How did I get on the cat? Utilize this Inferno tree, with a Burning Bullet and Molten Meteor, that kind of stuff. Let's go back. So I could see that being good. I think Justice actually has a pretty good spot. I wish this was a little bit better against bosses. In fact, I'm going to put a suggestion in the Discord that all launchers get a 100% projectile speed boost in boss battles, because I think that really needs to happen at this point in the game. Fire Tower is really, really good. So I think Fire Tower, Fire Dragon, Piercing Flame, maybe Justice here. I could see that working really well. And then Crimson Fire Scale is pretty good. No. Aura of Venom, Scorching Rounds as well is pretty good. I mean, I think that, maybe I need to be a little bit more particular here. I'm avoiding some stuff. Aura of Venom is really good at applying corrosion. Really, really good. I could also see something like a Deafening Mortar, even a Frenzied Shark, or a Bone Dragon that has an Elemental Gemini share with like an Aura of Venom up here. I could see that working out quite well as a good way to apply a lot of corrosive effect and maybe even pull enemies together with the Bone Dragon. I could see that working well in a hybrid build. I could also see Poisonous Ghost working okay. I'll also make the case that Lightning is a really good tool early game. Not as much late game, but especially early game on this character, because it really reduces the threat of enemies. You know, manipulation is kind of a joke as far as like its effectiveness beyond the fact that it stuns things. And granted, stunning things is incredible, especially in single player. So stuff like the Arc Light is quite good. Flowing Light can work, but you need to be careful. But definitely Arc Light was really, really good at applying manipulation with her abilities. I mean, I wish Thunderstorm was good. Lightning Blast, also great early, because it basically is a really good elemental applicator. Also, Lightning Blast, if you watched my uncut run, Lightning Blast secondary has a 50% multiplicative damage increase to any projectiles that pass through it, so you can use it to boost your Spiritual Flame, which is super fun. And if it works correctly, it also makes it 50% faster. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it really does work that way, but if it does, that's awesome. And probably Pupil and Porcupine are probably a good picks here. Maybe even Sting, although Sting is not my personal favorite. Maybe Prism. I'm not really feeling that though. And beyond that, I think that kind of covers everything I wanted to cover on this character. Yeah. I think it does, yeah. But I think she's really strong. I think she's pretty fun. I'm going to be trying out, probably tonight, this sort of weapon-based build, and we'll see how it goes. I'll probably do a commentary on that run. And anyway, hopefully this is useful for you. Hopefully this opens up your mind to some possibilities and maybe explains how the hero works, and maybe you can take it into some higher reincarnation runs now that you have a little bit better sense of how she synergizes with herself. Anyway, cheers. See you in the next one. Hope this helps. Bye. See, now it's awkward. Now we just I pressed the wrong button. We're still here.